Welcome to the Beacon House Podcast, recorded live in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Beacon House Podcast. This is your host Spence, and I'm your solo host today, but that's okay because I've got two very, very special guests here to kind of keep me in line. And this is a very exciting episode because we're here to talk about the Admiral Music Fest here that occurs in Knoxville. It's a yearly thing. Last year, you may recall, if you pay attention to Burn the City, and if you don't, why not? But we were in it last year, and it was spectacular. And they're going to talk about it, and we've got the two hosts of the Music Fest here, and I'm not even going to introduce them. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Katrina, why don't you go first?
Hi, I'm Katrina Duval. I am a piano teacher. I went to University of Tennessee for music and Knoxville native.
Nice. So you're a piano teacher. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's awesome because you have to... a lot of times I encounter people who are asking, like, do you know anybody that teaches piano? And I used to have a friend, Valerie Buckner, who taught voice and piano. Mm-hmm. And I'm always, curious as to who to recommend people to for piano lessons. So you heard it here on Beacon House. If you need a piano teacher, Katrina is your girl. And then my other guest today, Bailey Redmond, go ahead and say hello.
Hi, I'm Bailey Redmond. I am a local student at Farragut High School, and I am the founder of Admiral Music Fest.
That's amazing. Now, I want to get into that. I want to talk about the founding of the fest, not the feast, the founding of the fest. And I didn't mean for that to turn into such a soundbite. But anyway, we want to get into that, like how that came about, because there's a much older kind of version of this thing that used to occur at Farragut High School called Band Fest. And I believe it's maybe even been a couple different things since then. But it's kind of an ongoing, you may not even know, it's like an ongoing tradition. And that's actually where my musical roots lie, believe it or not. So,
wow.
Yeah, we're getting into it anyway. So, tell you what, man, like, first off, I want to just say, like, just this probably a year or two late, but thank you so much for having us a year ago. We absolutely loved it. We loved everybody that we got to see. I'm pretty sure we were the oldest guys there, which we're used to that all the time. But, man, like, some of the talent was so refreshing and so great. And, like, we talked to so many people. And I really hope that they don't think that we were being, like, patronizing when we were just like, man, you guys are so great, so great. And I'm, talking to this guy, he's like, 16 or whatever. Like, what is this old guy telling me? But we so much see, like, the people we are in those young people. And I mean, like, to me, it's the coolest thing. Like, I can't imagine anything cooler than just, like, being in your first or your second or whatever band and being 15, 16, 17 and getting to play at your high school in front of your peer group, like, I mean, wow, it's such a cool thing. So we were just absolutely over the moon to just be in the mix and see it all happening and just to get to contribute our, whatever we present, to the whole process. But I mean, it was magical. And just being on that stage was, again, I'll get into my backstory pretty soon. But why don't you guys start and just tell us a little bit about the festival? And like, I guess, Bailey, you said you started it. Why don't you give us just the origin story of Admiral Music Fest?
So, funny enough, the origin story began my freshman year of high school. I just turned 15, and I was getting really into the West Knox music scene. Performing, I would go down to Open Chord for all the open mic nights and, just kind of, I took a little piano up there. I have like a Yamaha stage piano, and I would just, do like 80s covers. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. But
and this was when you were 15. Mm-hmm. Just dove right into the West Knox music scene. That's incredible. That's amazing. And you said you played at Open Chord at the open mic nights.
I did. And then I was like, wow, this is really fun. I wish, we don't have anything like this over in Farragut where I'm at. And so I tried to look around for different music events in Farragut, kind of like that, different venues. And everything that was popping up were like bars or nightclubs. And I'm like, yeah, I'm 15. I don't think they would let me in. And so I was like, hey, Katrina, my piano teacher that I see every week.
So wait, hang on. Hold on a minute. The plot thickens. So she was your student.
Yeah, she's still my student.
Oh, God, love this.
I know.
This is such a good story. Okay, please, go on.
Okay, so around the same time, coincidentally, I was trying to get my Girl Scout Gold Award, which, if you don't know, it's like the highest. It's like the Boy Scout Eagle Scout,
Yeah.
but for Girl Scouting.
I did not know that, but that's worth noting. So anybody, by the way, anybody listening, hire her. Like I remember as I was a young music guy, like trying to be in bands and tour just a little bit, but also you had to have like jobs, and I got tricked into being like a trainer and a manager. Don't recommend it. But one of the first things I was taught was like, if you ever have a chance to hire like an Eagle Scout, just do it. And nobody even explained it. They just said, just do it. So what is that called again?
It's called the Girl Scout Gold Award.
Girl Scout Gold Award. Mm-hmm. All right. So anybody with a gold award, particularly Bailey, hire her.
Thank you. So around the same time, coincidentally, I was trying to earn my Gold Award, and I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do, because you have to do, kind of like with Eagle Scouts, you have to do like a little project, it's all involved. And I was like, what am I into? What in my community do I see that needs to be changed? And I was like, well, there's no spots for, people to perform in Farragut. And so I was like, hey, Katrina, I just popped it during a lesson one day, and I was like, hey, Katrina, I know you're like my adult supervisor for this Gold Award project. Hey, can you do you want to make a music event for people? And I don't know why she said yes, but she said yes, and that was the start of it all.
Right. I mean, so what I'm getting out of this, if I'm hearing correctly, is you were 15 years old, and you were playing clubs in West Knoxville, and just decided, I'm going to make my own music festival. That's kind of
pretty much, because I have all these friends I go to school with that are, musically inclined, and they like to do, they like to perform as well. And we all kind of had this similar problem of, there's nowhere for us to perform at.
100%. 100%.
I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a spot for my friends to perform at. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay. Katrina, can you give us a little bit of what was it like when she came to you?
So we had already been brainstorming on what her Gold Award project should be, and she came to her lesson just super, super frustrated. It's like, I've been trying to do this, I've been trying to get into that, I've been, playing at open chord, trying to play at these different places, and it's just not great. It's just there's nothing out there, and I'm just like, hey, I think we may have found your cause. And then
I'd say so. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
I would agree with that.
Yeah. And then one thing led to another, and we actually started planning it. And I've got several years of teaching behind me. And I'm like, it's just a big piano recital. It'll be fine. And it was very, very much so involved, but there was so much planning and so much help and support that, if we needed something and we didn't know what to do, then, there was somebody that we could talk to who could either help us or get us in contact with somebody who could help us.
Love that.
So lots of networking.
Love it. Absolutely love that. And so Bailey, how did you decide, I guess, once you got the green light, or I guess you can put one on. How did you approach the musicians? How did you get people? I don't even know how we got into it. But how did you do this thing?
So I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to reach out to people? Because I had made a, Instagram page, but nobody was following it. Nobody knew who I was. We hadn't even had a music event yet, And so I went downtown to the courthouse, and I printed out full color posters of audition for Admiral Music Fest. And it had a little, a QR code on it to this Google form. And I went around to all these different businesses in Farragut and Turkey Creek before I had a driver's license. I went around, just walked around to every single one. I took 2 days to do it, and I just went in and I asked every single business if they would like to put this poster up in their building. And obviously a lot of them said no. But I started getting a lot of kids from my school, because I'd put a couple up at school, that were like, hey, we'd be interested. A lot of them I was friends with already. And so I was like, heck yeah. And then as I started putting it out on Instagram, come to Admiral Music Fest. We've got such and such band from Farragut High School. I started having like more and more different bands, not for my school, like actual established bands in Knoxville reach out to me, and I was like, holy cow.
I love this so much. I love it because I will tell you something, and I'm gonna. By the way, this whole podcast is going to be littered with old guy stories, like back in my day. But I want you to know, back in the day when we were in bands that were just struggling to get anybody to notice. Some of us weren't old enough to play in bars, and like same kind of thing. Like you couldn't get booked anywhere, and we would go to before FedEx there was Kinko's, so we would make copies, and we would literally. I'm not kidding. We would like ride our bikes to the like coffee shop or the bookstore, get magazines and like cut pictures out, and then tape them all to like an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper and kind of make a flyer. And then we would go to Kinko's in the middle of the night and like print them. And then even some of the ones we'd print, we'd have to cut and then reprint it to make the perfect flyer. And then we would run 1 million of those and do the same thing just on foot. We would hand so many of those out, and I feel like. Somewhere in the last 20 years, like that raw ambition, kind of probably because of the how easy it is to just get on your phone, but some of that stuff just dissolved. And I'm here to tell you, I know this is going to sound patronizing, but it is so refreshing to hear somebody so young that's doing it like that. Because I mean, it was so. I mean, the bands that worked for it made it, and the ones that worked the hardest got there, and it was just like. There's a very, very popular local band called 10 Years, and they're all really, really good friends of mine. And at the time they were kind of coming up, I was working at Guitar Center, and they would come in there, and they were really young. Like they were still in a couple of them might have been at Pelsey, but most of them were in high school. And they were about to have their first gig ever. And they were coming in there handing out flyers, and they really were like bugging the hell out of us, almost to the point where we're like, oh, here come these 10 Years guys again, But then the day of the show came, and they were so young they couldn't get booked. They wound up renting out the Ramada Inn banquet room on Cedar Bluff Road. And I remember getting off work one day with some of my old jaded musician guys. Like I went on tour with Waylon Jennings for a summer, or somebody of those guys, and I go, hey man, those young guys, I think they're having their big show today. I mean, I know that it's like a banquet room, but at the Holiday Inn or whatever, but like maybe we should go over there after work. And they were like, I don't know. But I went, and a really good friend of mine who also was a coworker. He's now the senior pastor at Awaken Church downtown, Adam Lutz. He was working there at the time. We went over there, and I mean, there were kids everywhere, all over Cedar Bluff Road, to the point where it was stopping traffic. There was like 500 kids in the middle of the street, and we were just like, was there like a helicopter crash or something happened here? And I was like, this can't be for that show. There's no way. Like for somebody's first show. And they had literally just handed out flyers, just pounded the pavement and made it happen. And like they went on to be really, really big. Like they had like #1 active rock album in like 2005 or something with the Autumn Effect. I mean, they're legendary in Knoxville. But it all just kind of came from that. So it is so refreshing to see that kind of ambition in somebody so young and talented. To just like, well, I'm just going to go play at open court. You know what I mean? Like, we were so terrified. But man, I think a lot of people could really take a cue from you to just let that ambition kind of drive you to do your stuff. So Katrina, let me hear a little bit from you. Like, while she's, ambitiously rounding up all these bands, like what's going on your end of the thing? So
mine was probably a little bit more logistical,
right?
Like trying to figure out, okay, what, who do we need to talk to about getting equipment rented? What space are we going to be using? Because, there's a lot of things still like left up in the air. Funding, like how are we going to be getting money for this?
Right.
And just different little like details like that.
Which is just as hard as finding bands. Mm-hmm. It's like, I mean, it's easy. Like someone go, okay, we'll play it, but how? Yeah. Who's going to...
Finding the bands was like the easy part. Like it eventually was about to turn into like another Woodstock. Like we were having to like tell people like, I'm sorry, not this year, because there was like already such a huge lineup that first year.
So talk to me about. We were in the second year, is that right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been a 3-year. It's a 3-year thing, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and the third year is about to happen, coming up March 29th. Is that right? Mm-hmm. By the way, you're going to hear that date a lot during this podcast, so go ahead and put that on your calendar now. And you're going to keep hearing me tell you March 29th. It's a Saturday, right?
Correct.
Okay, coming up very soon. So, but let's take me back to that first year. Did the first year also happen at Farragut High School?
It did.
Okay, in the auditorium there?
Yes.
Okay.
I've got a list pulled up.
Who all played the first year?
Okay. So the first year, according to this list I have on Instagram from 2 years ago, we had the Farragut Marching Band Front Ensemble Percussion Group.
I love that. I was in the Farragut High School Marching Band, by the way.
You had mentioned that, and
Back
I
in
was
the day.
like, oh my goodness.
Back in the day, in the 90s. Anyway, go on.
Then we had Hayden Bright.
Okay.
We had a girl from my school. She called herself Van Mercy. I haven't heard from her since this night.
That's a cool name.
She was pretty cool. Free Your Mind.
They played with us, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're out of Farragut. They live in my neighborhood.
Nice.
I mean, they're really cool. Boundless Trap, which is another guy that goes to my school.
They were on our year too?
Yeah,
Okay.
he does like metal, and he does a lot of what he does. He doesn't get to like play in front of people, but he does a lot of like electronic metal. Like he toys around with it online. Backyard Dinner. They don't even exist anymore. Yeah.
Love that.
Which Backyard Dinner, the funny thing about them, their lead guy is both Boundless Trap's older brother and the orchestra teacher's son at my school.
Wow,
So this was like, oh my goodness. I had like the whole family
There's
reunion
a whole
going
family
on.
band going on there.
Then we had...
Also, I just want to say, if to my fellow bandmates that are listening, if we don't have a song on the next album called Backyard Dinner, then I don't know if I'm going to stay in the band. Just go on.
Okay, and hold tight with me. This list was kind of long.
Give it. Let's go.
Okay, then we got Isaiah Haro. He is a guitarist from my school. He's also in the band. He still does a lot of like local things by himself. Then we had French Toast. I love them.
I like all the food references in this first.
Yeah, we had like a whole running joke about like, hey, should we set the table up like in the auditorium? Do we get out the fine china? Then we had
Who's going to roll silverware?
Yeah, seriously. But then we had Vivid Display.
I think they were also on air.
No, they were not.
Okay.
They were just a one-time thing. But then we had Homie John, which I haven't heard from him since this point. He did like kind of like electronic and vocals, and I don't even want to know. I don't know what it's called. And then we had Milkman and the Big Band.
Oh, I remember. I've heard of them. Yeah.
And then we had London to Board.
Yeah, no, that was also our year too. Okay.
We had a girl called Haley Nance.
Okay.
And then we had the Barber Bone Quartet, which were all the trombones at my school.
Amazing. And that was the first year. And how did that one go off?
Oh gosh, it started off.
Was it crazy?
So.
And by the way, before you say anything, I want you to know, anytime you put more than like two bands together on a bill of any kind, it's mayhem. It's bedlam. So don't feel like
There's a lot of running around, a lot of stage managing, a lot of communication between us and the sound booth, and it's like, hey, can you get these guys to wrap up a little bit?
And musicians are
they
not...
can finish their song. Like, we were trying to be so polite about it and everything, but also it's like, all right, well, okay.
They just keep going.
Okay,
Yeah.
I guess you can have one more song.
Yeah, you had some bands that just took advantage of the fact that, like, oh, this is a school, this is at a school, these are high schoolers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll just play whatever we want.
Yeah,
We'll do
basically.
yeah.
But, I mean, it went pretty well. Obviously, the crowd was not that big. It was mostly just a bunch of my little nerdy friends that showed up. They cheered the whole time. We had...
they were the best audience.
Oh, they were so
I was about to say...
so involved and engrossed in, like, all the performances. Like
They started a 5-person mosh pit, and that was probably the most hyped I've seen, like, a group of people.
Those people are worth their weight in gold. I'm telling you what, man. Like, I've played to tiny audiences of enthusiastic people, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Like, it is so good when people aren't afraid to come up to the front, or they're not afraid to like cheer and shout and put their hand, they're not afraid to participate. It's terrifying to be in a band and have a very sterile audience. Like we've done it, but I mean, if you just even if one guy in the crowd is enthusiastic, it'll get you through. So shout out to those people. And by the way, any of the listeners too, like, man, I understand there's a wide spectrum of situations under which you might arrive at a live show. But if you can help it, don't just stand in the back with your hands in your pockets, like go up and cheer or at least clap, for the band, because it's until you receive like national attention, this is kind of a pretty thankless endeavor, unless you have at least a little bit of encouragement. So anyway, that's my little speech, but go on.
Oh gosh. So the first year, we walk in at 10 a.m. Oh, we had this whole thing like scheduled out. We were like hour by hour, minute by minute, like what is going to happen?
Katrina's laughing.
And Katrina, yeah, she's laughing. I'm laughing. I laughed
You're
about
laughing
it.
now.
No, I laughed about it.
Yeah, we stayed on schedule for like 20 minutes, and then the rest of it was just out the window. It's just like
mayhem.
Just like
total
let's
mayhem.
just, try to keep a level head. This still needs to get done. Okay, well, this didn't go the way we wanted it to. Okay, we're going to do this instead.
Because we walked in at 10 a.m., and for context, the Farragut High School auditorium, apparently, now I know, it is used by like a megachurch on the weekends.
Oh, I didn't know
and
that
so they had stored like all of their things in the auditorium. So there was like
there's like a manger set up.
Yes, there was like
so much.
There was like a whole 2 hours of us just trying to wheel all this crap out into the hallway and get it out so we could like get to the stage.
Gosh.
Yeah, and then, threatening all the volunteers of, do not touch this. This isn't ours.
Yeah.
But
a bunch
like
of
a
high
borrowed
school
space,
kids.
yeah, it's shared space, borrowed space. Like, be respectful.
Well, and I'm here to tell you that, like, even adult musicians, like musicians in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and I'm assuming up, are not famous for being like the most organized, respectable bunch anyway. But when you talk about a bunch of high school musicians, I mean, it's just like, and I was one, and I don't think that they mean. I know that I never meant to cause any turmoil, but it's just like it's the funnest time of your life, and it's just the skies.
Absolutely.
Possibilities are wide open, and you're playing at your school, and like who knows what's going to happen? You're going to show that teacher that was mean to you, or that person that you've been trying to get their attention to, like maybe go on a date or whatever. Like, this is your chance. Or it's so many of those like those like 80s movies feelings, like you have all that stuff, and you talk about not the demographic to keep organized. And then like, if you guys wouldn't mind standing here until I go find the, no, I mean, it's crazy. Mm-hmm. It's nuts. So kudos to you guys for living through that. And so, and was this originally set up as like a charitable event where you're doing donations like year one, or did that come later?
I mean, I don't exactly remember when the exact moment was that we decided, but I knew, hey, I don't want to make money off of this. I couldn't, because one of the like main points of the Gold Award is that it constantly gives back to the community. Yeah. You don't benefit from it, you benefit other people. And so I was like, okay, because I can't make money, how do we justify asking people for, $3 at the door?
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, there's this really cool place that some of my friends, musician friends, volunteer at to like teach music lessons. Joy of Music School.
Joy of Music School.
Yep.
Yes, absolutely.
And so I was like, well, I'm sure they would appreciate, it's a local charity. They do amazing work for the community. So I'm sure they would appreciate, even just $50, $10. Yeah.
Anything helps. Yeah.
So we decided then, oh, hey, we're going to give all of this money to the Joy Music School. It's going to be great, giving back to the community. And yeah.
And at a time, I'll add, and if you listen to this podcast long enough, not only have you probably heard lots of profanity. I'm trying to be good today, but
I hear worse at school. You can go for it.
You probably do. But if you've listened to this podcast long enough, so you've probably heard me go on about like what a struggle the music and the arts have in schools and just in local communities. Mm-hmm. Like there's just no funding. There's nothing. It's totally a passion project, which keeps it pure, I think, keeps it cool, but also there's not a lot of resources to make that kind of thing happen. So it's big when anybody's willing to give anything, or even just a little nod to like a school of volunteers like that, like Joy Music School. So our hearts go out to the whole process, and I mean, what a cool thing to do. So take me through year two. This is the year Burn the City came to the Admiral Music Fest.
We learned a lot from year one.
Yeah, okay.
and made a list of here's what we are not going to do.
Yeah.
Here's a list of things that we're going to do differently.
Yeah.
And it went much smoother. We
Yeah.
didn't have the pressure of we are doing this for a Gold Award project.
Yeah.
Like, we've got that pressure taken off of us because there was a lot.
We could finally have fun.
Yes. So year 2 was more fun. It was still chaotic, but it was more organized than year 1.
Sure. And I thought it seemed very organized compared to like the ones I saw back in the day. Like I had no idea what was going on there, but
we had more help on stage too,
We
like
did.
with helping the bands coordinate like who's going on, who's going off, and everything.
And we had actual sponsors this time, which was a huge thing for us. So obviously, we're just 2 people.
Yeah.
And Katrina was backstage the whole time, trying to get equipment on and off and all that.
I remember being back in that little equipment pit, kind of like with some of the other bands, and like of course, like when you get musicians together, they're all like looking at the gear, and I'm like, "Oh, is that your guitar? That's really cool, man." Oh, yeah, I got this amp this year. Like we were just back there being like that, and it was awesome. Like,
So, like, Katrina was back there, and I was trying to coordinate whatever was going on up front. And this year we had actual sponsors, and so it was also trying to coordinate some of those, like, sponsor tables, because
Yeah.
we would just let people, like, oh, hey, you sell... literally, you sell anything, you have a business, come set up a table. We don't charge anything. We love to just have people here because it looks good
Yeah.
if we have people present out in the lobby before you walk in, just people to be there.
Yeah.
And so it was a huge upgrade for us the second year to have sponsors because it took away a lot of the pressure on things like, feeding the musicians, which, we want to do. Right.
100%.
Sandwiches. We had poke bowls last year and like cookies and desserts and all
oh,
that
you guys
fun
had
stuff.
a huge spread
Yeah.
back there.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, making sure the volunteers are drinking water and taking breaks and everything.
It was in the band room, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I used to sit in that room and attempt to play alto saxophone. But anyway.
So, that was a huge difference the second year, a huge upgrade. We also knew what equipment we actually needed because the first year it was like us just kind of guessing. And so we would get certain things. I think we had gotten 25-foot XLR cables, and it turns out we needed XLR cables that were 50-foot,
Yeah.
twice as big. And so it was just us constantly running around that first year. And so the second year, it was kind of like we knew what we were doing. We had notes from year 1. We had sponsorships. We had more support. People knew about it. And so we had a lot more people show up. And that was really, that was awesome.
I agree, and it was a lot of fun. We had a blast. Like the whole band went, and some of their families came, and they're just made the day out of it.
I saw that. I saw all these kids in the mosh pit, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is awesome!"
Yeah, it was great, and they were really, really nice to us. And it's just like this full circle moment. I'll go ahead and tell my little story.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the 1900s, when I went to Farragut High School as a youth, and my freshman year. They had a thing in that same auditorium called a weirdly similar name called Band Fest. And it was all these bands. Some of the bands were from the high school, some of them kind of the same arrangement. And I remember going to that with some of my friends and they're going to be there. The bands are the upperclassmen. And we were freshmen. And we went and we were just we couldn't believe it. I'd never seen a real show. I'd never been to a real concert. I was just I couldn't believe this was happening in the auditorium at my high school. And I was just, I was forever changed. And all of a sudden, I became friends with some of those guys. And I had never seen a real guitar. And that's where I met my friend Mick Murphy. And there was a band they were called Scatterbrain at the time, but they went on to be called Hypertribe. And they were legendary Knoxville band for many, many, many years. And some of those guys went on to do crazy, like the bassist, Nick Rescue-Lennox, went on to be a Grammy award-winning producer that produced Foo Fighters and Rush and everybody. He lives in Nashville now, but he was there and just bonkers stuff, and then cut to a year later, I had a little band. We didn't have a singer. It was just me. We didn't have a bass player either. It was just 2 guitar players and a drummer. And we had signed on to be in Band Fest. And we were going to play in that auditorium. And I'd never played a show ever in front of anybody ever. And the very first song that we were going to perform was called Fade to Black. It's a Metallica song. And it's really hard to play. And I was so terrified. And we had talked to another guy that wasn't even in our band, just a friend of ours. And he was a singer. And he had agreed to play bass on the song. we just weren't going to have vocals because we didn't have anybody. And so literally in that hallway, right there where you guys had all the refreshments set up, in like the band locker hallway, right before the show went on, his bass player shows up and goes, well, hey, I know how to play Fade to Black. You want me to play bass? And then he can just sing it. And he was like, I don't know if I know the words to it or not. And we literally went in the bathroom in that hallway, and the guy, I think it says, life it seems to fade, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and he wrote it on his arm. And we performed it right then, like no rehearsal or no anything. And that was the first time I'd ever played in front of anybody. And it went great, but it was like so terrifying. And so long story short, getting to come back and play on that same stage after playing a whole bunch of gigs and like feeling like I finally know kind of what I'm doing on the guitar, like it was very, very cathartic for me. And I was just like, it was so spectacular. And I was still felt like I was that like 15-year-old kid in that auditorium, just like, it's got to be good. It's got to be good. Because that auditorium is like hallowed ground, or just the whole process, the festival and band fest. And so I just assumed that Admiral Music Fest was kind of just the derivative of whatever they used to call band fest. Do you know, had there been any musical festivals since like the early 2000s?
Not that I'm aware of, really. I mean, the auditorium just kind of sits empty most of the time.
So you literally resurrected the legendary Knoxville Band Fest as Admiral Music Fest.
I had no clue. Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And there's some people listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about, because we all stood there just like worshiping at the altar of rock and roll. Like we couldn't believe. And again, we weren't old enough to get into clubs, to go to bars, to do any of that. Like literally, you were so lucky if you got to see somebody play rock, like up close. And I mean, spectacular. So that was kind of like my whole story. So being back there, just walking down that hallway and like looking around and being like, whoa, and like it's like I got a second chance almost, to like have that first moment again. But it was spectacular. And so we loved it. We had a blast. Thanks so much for everybody that came, saw Burn the City there. And you guys are so incredibly gracious to us, and everybody in the other bands we played with are phenomenal. Now, what about year 3? Talk to me about what's coming. Now, you guys have moved it out of the auditorium. It's going to be outside now.
It's going to be at the Farragut Community Center.
Farragut Community Center.
So, short little explanation here. So for the first and second year that we've done it, Knox County Schools was gracious enough to let us use. I mean, of course, I had to go downtown. I had to have all these meetings to get it approved because liability. But but they had been gracious enough to let us use the auditorium and the entire school, actually, for, that 12-hour period, that whole day, as long as we had a teacher present. And that was the orchestra teacher sitting in the back on his laptop, just like, what's up? Every time a heavy metal band came through, he's just like classic middle-aged dad, just sitting back there. And then this year, I went up.
He's probably about the right age to have appreciated some Slayer back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say he's probably not too shocked by that.
Yeah. So then I went up to, this year, as soon as the school semester started, I went up to the secretary who handles all of the, scheduling for school events and non-school events. And I was like, hey, can we get on the calendar this year to use the auditorium again for another music fest? And she paused what she was doing. She got up from her computer, came up to the front desk, and she went, you're going to have to find a different spot. And she looked so, uncomfortable and like she was breaking this news to me. And I was like, oh no, what happened? And she's like, Knox County Schools has a new policy. We can't let outside people use our facilities anymore. And in short, it wasn't anything that we had done.
Right.
The school loved that we were using the space. It was just a downtown thing from, I guess, other schools. People had been doing not so great things.
Sure.
And so that was crossed off the list. I went to the town of Farragut and I was like, hey, can I use Founders Park to host another music fest? Because I'm not saying you should do this, but if you want to host music events in Farragut,
if you were going
to, and you so happen to have a park called Founders Park, and you host small events, they don't really notice. The only time they take notice is if you go up to them and ask. So I made the mistake of going up, and I had a meeting with them, and I asked, and they were like,
Now that you mention it, no.
Yeah, they were like, no. And they were...
What do you mean? We've been having smaller events at this park.
Oh, man.
They said no.
They're not having it.
They were not having it. But it wasn't because they didn't want it to... I mean, I guess they didn't want it to happen. But the way that they pitched it to me was, you can't make it happen. It's not going to happen. It's going to fail. You can't successfry do this. And it was very... they were very condescending about
Thanks.
it.
Yeah.
And... I mean, I guess they didn't realize that I've been doing
this.
They
didn't realize who they're dealing with. They didn't realize this is Bailey Redmond, who's been playing at Open Chord and already created 2 music festivals,
And so I was like, well, okay. And then they were like, well, we'll let you use the community center. And I'm like, okay. And, I was like, okay, I guess that's fine. Don't have to worry about weather and all that. But they had pitched it to me like they were going to just like let me use it because I'm a student, been doing this, whatever. But no, I did have to pay to use the space. I'm not going to say how much, but it kind of hurts a little bit. But guess what? We're using the Farragut Community Center now. We're going to get the most bang out of our buck. We're going to make this amazing. Not going to be restrained to like KCS policies anymore.
Well, and if Beacon House Podcast and Burn the City listeners and everybody that we know has anything to say about it, we will make it big. This will be hopefully the biggest one.
We're hoping to. The town of Farragut was like, you can't make this big like this. Not like oh you can't, but it's like they don't think that it's possible.
Well, it's easier to ask forgiveness and permission,
Exactly. And so
circle the wagons, folks.
We are hoping to get quite a crowd. We've got
March 29th. Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's get it.
So, I mean, that's kind of what led up to this year. It being a changed location was just because somebody at a different school did something stupid, and then the almighty downtown KCS office said, not anymore. And so...
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you didn't let that slow you down one bit. And
no.
Now also, not to hang sort of like a dark cloud over this, but this is the last one?
Yes, unfortunately, this is the last one. Not for any bad reason, but because I'm graduating from high school this year and I'm moving off, going to college, and it's just I'm not going to be in Farragut to do it anymore.
Sure.
Now, over the summer, I hope to do like 1 or 2 little shows, like outdoor, like with just like 1 or 2 bands.
Sure.
But this is it.
Where you, if you don't mind me asking, where are you going to school?
I'm going to Tennessee Tech.
That's where weirdly, that's where I went to band camp when I was in the Farragut marching. Anyway, so you're not going to be too terribly far. Also, if anybody starts to see a bunch of music festivals popping up near Tennessee Tech, you'll know who's responsible. I don't see you slowing down with this type of ambition, which is spectacular. God, that's what we need so much. So we've got Katrina. Why don't you talk a little bit about what all logistically you've got worked out, or if you need volunteers, or just kind of walk us through what you expect for this upcoming Admiral Music Fest.
Yeah. So any volunteers that want to come, the more the merrier. There is a little bit of a time constraint.
Sure.
With setting up and everything, because there's I think a farmer's market going on like right before. So we're not going to have our fun. 12 hours filled of panicking and like getting tables set up and everything.
Yeah.
Now it's 2 hours.
Yes. But, it won't be too bad, but it's mostly just helping move chairs, helping, put signs out, helping, kind of set up some of the equipment.
Gotcha. If people listening, hint, and I'm expecting there to be some listeners that jump on this, but if anybody listening would like to volunteer, how can they get in touch with you guys to offer their services?
So we've got a website with some information on there too about how to contact us and everything. Mm-hmm. It's admiralmusicfest.com.
That's pretty easy to remember.
And then we've also got our Instagram page and our Gmail. I think it's...
Yes. So, okay. Honestly, either emailing us at admiralmusicfest@gmail.com or reaching out to us on Instagram and just sending us a DM is probably the quickest way to get a hold of us.
And they're being dead serious because when I asked them if they wanted to come on the podcast when I saw the show coming up, and they responded very quickly. Like they're very prompt. don't be afraid to reach out. Like, go on Instagram, Admiral Music Fest. And you guys said admiralmusicfest@gmail.com.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So you guys reach out, offer. What are you guys doing on a Saturday anyway? Come on. Come be part of the Admiral Music, the Knoxville legacy of talent. And, oh, man, like, I can't wait. So we'll try to get you guys some some volunteers for whatever reason. And is there anything else that you need help with if anybody's out there? Like,
equipment-wise, we've got all of that set up through Guitar Center, thankfully.
Nice.
Like, they're, love renting through them. They've been so wonderful the last several years.
Really good friend of mine, John Springer,
helpful.
works over there, and he's just the best. Well, there's two really good friends of mine still work there, John Springer and another guy named Braxton, and they are, I mean, they'll get you out of a jam.
Yeah.
Shout out Guitar Center Knoxville, where I used to work also.
Yes.
Yeah, man. Like,
they've come in clutch, honestly, because we've rented equipment from them in the first year. We were we didn't know what we were renting really. So we just rented a bunch of stuff people recommended. And with the cables, it was they were, we needed cables twice as long, and they quickly fixed that. I mean,
in this very room are many XLR cables that weren't long enough, so we have two plugged into each other to double the,
yeah.
Like we needed a 100-foot one to go from over there all the way around, so we have 3 20-foot ones going, that kind of thing.
At one point, I think they gave us a 100-foot long XLR cable, and that thing was a beast. I don't think we used it.
Oh yeah, indeed, yeah.
Funding, that's really the big thing this year because we've had to pay to use the community center. There is a GoFundMe that is set up.
Ooh, let's talk about where do they find that?
I'll give you the link.
Okay.
On here, it's just support Admiral Music Fest final year. There's a picture of, one of our flyers.
I was going to say the GoFundMe is up on our Instagram page as well.
Okay.
So instead of having to go on Google, if you want to go to our Instagram page, we have a link to it. I think I'd copied and pasted the link in our bio, as well as reposted where Katrina had posted a link to it. So.
Well, and I'll tell you what. Well, as soon as we get this episode up, I'll be sure to share it on Beacon House social media, on Burn the City social media, and on Spencer McCoy's social media. So we'll blast it everywhere.
Yeah.
And again, I know I've appealed to you guys for a lot of things, but please, to our listeners, if you guys have anything to spare, you could tell how hard they're working and how many no's they've gotten, and it didn't stop them. And they do these amazing things, and they've helped Joy Music School. So, man, hit that GoFundMe if you can. Drop a couple bucks, whatever you can spare. Anything helps. Like we said, there's no amount too little. This time they had to pay for the venue. We're going to make it bigger than ever. So you guys get in there and help out Admiral Music Fest. Final year. This is it. This is the big show. Let's go out with a bang.
Yeah, and it's really, honestly, it's just, helping with cost of providing food to the musicians and volunteers, rental equipment, the space, miscellaneous
Sure.
cost and expenses. It's not anything really extravagant. It's just, to help kind of cushion that
Totally.
that cost of that community center.
And
100%.
I mean, again, aside from the GoFundMe, just showing up, if we can have as many people there as possible, that would be amazing. Just go out with a bang,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And showing these people some support.
Artists, yeah.
Support these artists, support the process. This is I mean, man, it doesn't get more grassroots than this. This is what it's all about. All those bands that you see started out exactly like this, and I cannot emphasize that enough. You were talking about playing at Open Chord.
Yes.
The very last show that Burn the City played was at Open Chord. And
I had seen that on Instagram.
We opened for Keith Wallen, who's now in the band Breaking Benjamin.
Oh, wow.
And he's a Knoxville guy, and he was actually the very first guest ever on this podcast, way back in 2018 or something. And he's huge now, and he hit us up, and we got to go play Open Chord with him. But I mean, again, it all starts out. We started out playing at a place called the Prince Deli. It was on Lovell Road, and it was like a sandwich, kind of like a sports bar / they had a little stage in the corner, and that's where all of us played because he would let us play there even though we weren't 21. And that's where also Brent, the singer for Shinedown, he started here doing that kind of thing. So bands like 10 Years, Breaking Benjamin, Shinedown, all of those came from grassroots programs, just like the one you're doing right here in Knoxville. So don't sleep on this, man. Don't think it's just some high school bands. By the way, that's the future of music. So get out and support them, man. Be enthusiastic, Anyway, that's my little speech. So Okay, so so we've got the GoFundMe. We're going to share all that. Reach out if you want to volunteer, admiralmusicfest.com or admiralmusicfest@gmail, or the Instagram for Admiral Music Fest. And I'm just going to blast all this stuff on our social media after we're done here. Don't worry. So let's see here. So March 29th, it's a Saturday. What time does this thing kick off?
So doors and music start at 4 p.m.
4 p.m., okay.
We've got, aside from music, we've also got a few different vendors. Some of my friends that are into like arts and crafts are going to be setting things up.
Nice.
We've got Lizard's Greenhouse that's setting up like a little, house plant table, and she does like little baked goods and all that kind of stuff.
Phenomenal.
So we're really excited to have her on. We're going to have our table, like the show table. As soon as you walk in the doors, we're going to have a trifold setup with like our story, a set list of all the different bands, and then also just like a thing for donations for Joy Music School.
That's phenomenal. Well, anything we can do to help, we're absolutely all on board for this, and I'm so excited. Now, if I guess you can. If people wanted to volunteer, you probably need them there a little before 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can get into when they contact you can kind of tell.
Yeah, we'll give them more information about when to show up and what to expect and everything too.
Gotcha. And this is going on at the Farragut Community Center?
Yes.
Do you have the address for that?
Let me pull it up. It is, okay, I'm just going to give you the straight address.
Lay it on us.
It is 239 Jamestown Boulevard.
Gotcha.
In Farragut.
Do you know what that's off of? Is that off of Camel Station?
It's off of Camel Station.
Gotcha.
So it used to be this like mega church across the street from Farragut High School.
Okay.
But they've like turned it into a community center, and it's got like a giant, it's got tons of different like giant rooms to use.
Nice. So right off the interstate, Campbell Station, boom, right there.
Yes.
So very close to the high school still. That's awesome. Okay, so I'm saying it now. Everybody listening, I expect to see you there. And please, again, if you can, volunteer for these people. They're so wonderful. Reach out, do whatever you can. And if you don't have time that day, if you're going to be out of town or you can't make it, hit that GoFundMe. Admiral Music Fest, final year. You can find it on GoFundMe or check our social media. And man, just let's get this thing going. I'm stoked about it. What's next for you guys? What happens next for Katrina Duval? Where can people find you, or if they want piano lessons, reach out, or what are you going to be up to?
So I'm currently teaching with Bill Jones Music.
Yeah.
So there's several wonderful teachers there for all sorts of instruments that kids want to learn. So I'm teaching there. And then I would kind of like to see something like this continue. Maybe not exactly Admiral Music Fest, but something in its likeness. Yeah. Just because I think it is such a good outreach, especially for these young musicians in high school, like, making these connections with older musicians and, just getting different encouragement and different perspectives and opinions.
And lighting that fire, like I feel like there's these days, I even remember back when, when I in the early 2000s, I remember reading articles. I've always been just such a nerd about studying my musical heroes and reading everything they had to say and going from books to watching them on YouTube. But I remember one guy was talking about. He said, the terrible thing is now to get a kid to really appreciate playing the guitar or being a singer or learning piano or whatever, you're competing with Fortnite. You're competing with Xbox. You're competing with all these things that seem a little more instantly gratifying, but ultimately they don't lead to the same wonderful, magical places that learning music takes you. But it's hard to convince young people of that without some encouragement. And if they can't ever do a gig, they don't ever see how much fun it is to play live and express yourself live. And it's just hard to instill that if there's not something going on. But if there's a concert or a festival going on and their friends are playing at it or your friends are going to it, then all of a sudden you get this buzz and it's just this thing. I agree with you. I think it's something needs to continue.
And especially because it's, it's a safe, encouraging environment. And then it's also, some place where it is family friendly. It's outside of a bar or a nightclub. And it's, just another opportunity for young people to have stage experience at such a young age, and a good environment that their younger siblings can come to, or their parents' friends and stuff like that,
Yeah,
or grandparents.
We've had everybody from like little bitty kids to like grandma and grandpa show up. I mean,
and
crazy.
It is for all ages.
And honestly, like, when's the last time something in the community happened that united such a wide array of people from different backgrounds and different age groups and everything? Like, you know what I mean? That's kind of special just to have something that brings that many people together with one common interest, is to watch people play music or something. Like, that's massive. So it's just, again, all good stuff. So Katrina, they can find you at Bill Jones Music teaching piano, along with a bunch of other good music instructors that teach. Again, music instructors are the greatest people on earth. And then Bailey, you're going to be here till what? Fall? You go off in the fall?
I do. I leave at the end of August, but I'm graduating in May. But yeah, I do leave in August to go off to Cookeville to start college. So.
Well, we will be following your journey. We're very, very excited to see all the things you do with music. You know, like, I can't imagine this not. And also, we'd love to hear you play, too. Are you doing any gigs? Are you going to be playing any gigs at, like, Open Court or anything before you leave?
No, but I mean, like, now I do, I mostly do stuff with, like, mandolin now.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wow.
Like, performance-wise. So I do, like, I'm in FFA, Future Farmers of America.
Nice.
And I go to, like, you know, the state conventions and national conventions, and I play for them there. And then a couple of times, or no, just once, I got the, like, amazing opportunity, I think it was last year, to go up and play at Old Smoky the Holler in Gatlinburg for them. So,
how many? If you don't mind me asking, how many different things do you play?
Just two, just piano and mandolin.
What about you? What about you, Katrina? You play anything else besides piano?
Play piano, ukulele. I started out on violin. Only took that for like a year and a half, and then just kind of got tired of it and quit, like most kids do. And then started in piano. Ukulele, I took a few years of cello lessons.
So everything. Just, you play everything.
I want to try a little bit of everything.
That's phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Do you have any favorite piano players? Like, if somebody was going to go, I don't know much about piano, who should I listen to? Like,
living or dead?
Either one.
Oh gosh, Katrina and I talk about the most, like, obscure classical composers.
Oh, let's go. Let's gimme.
So, like, my favorite obscure classical composer is Frederick Bergmuller, and I talk about this man every single piano lesson, and we try and find, like, all of his stuff, and we talk about
Bergmuller.
Yes.
Okay.
And because I mean. Okay, if you.
And what is it about this guy what does it for you? Like,
yes, Bailey. Actually, what about this guy that does?
3 things. Okay, so 3 things. 1, he's got some really famous like piano pieces and like string quartet pieces. His life story, like if you go and look him up on Wikipedia, his life story is kind of
bonkers.
It's kind of sad, honestly.
Oh, wow, okay.
Like he came from like a really well-known opera family. Like they were really musically inclined. He composed and his brother composed, and then he died in Paris at like a thermal spa in a hot tub.
Whoa.
He was like scalded to death or something.
Frederick Bergmuller.
Yes.
Okay, everybody go research Frederick Bergmuller.
And then, okay, what I love about this man is that he looks like a middle-aged English teacher, like you would
C.S.
find
Lewis
him,
or something.
You would find him in like as a teacher at your high school. Don't look up portraits of this man. There's like one like sketched out portrait of him, and it's just the most pitiful thing.
Okay, I'm listening to this on the way home. What about you? What do you think? You got anybody?
As a teacher, like I really enjoy working with those pieces because there's a whole entire set that we've been kind of working through since like early high school.
Oh yeah, there's countless, and they're all for like studying different techniques and stuff.
So
like a lot of students will touch upon Bergmuller if you do, especially piano. But I mean,
this is so fascinating. I love this absolutely because we used to study on the guitar. We used to study like we would do like Bach, like his violin concertos for single note type of things. But then we would study like Chopin for chordal stuff, and so there were different guys that were kind of like specialized in various things. And then I remember there were like bonkers guys like Shostakovich was just like
yeah.
Handel was one of the real weird like dark ones.
Well, Was he?
Handel, he was
Maybe not. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else.
Beethoven definitely, like, he kind of bridged that gap and did some more, like, different, like, you know, kind of took things away from, like, that classical, like, traditional classical music sound. And, like, his early stuff is just, you know, very, very traditional and everything. And then his later stuff just kind of, like, it went off the rails and kind of, like, helped inspire other people.
Love it. So who were you going to say? Who was, give me, you're a Bergmuller. Who would you recommend somebody check out? Maybe somebody that they haven't heard.
Honestly, I've been on, like, a Shostakovich
kick
lately, too. Like, some of his jazz suites are wonderful.
Who's that Italian composer that you introduced me to?
I don't remember.
There was this really kind of funky Italian composer that she introduced me to, and
this is not a classical composer, but one of the guys I always enjoyed listening to play piano a lot was Chick Corea. Mm-hmm. Like, that guy, he did his. He had, like, the Chick Corea electric band, but then, like, the Chick Corea acoustic band, and they were both spectacular. But man, he would, like, when that guy would get on a run, it was just like far out, you know.
Yeah, there's several people that, like, I'll pull up on YouTube whenever I see them. None of their names are coming to my mind right now.
There's I don't want to say YouTuber, but there's a classical pianist called Connie. I believe it's Connie Hahn, Haan, and she's got a active social media, like, on Instagram, and I mean, it's just it's bonkers, man. Like, she just shreds.
Yeah. Yes. There's definitely several people out there that, like, I'll just look at them and my jaw's just, like, on the floor. Like, I couldn't do this.
You mean like the 3-year-old child prodigies on YouTube that
I don't watch those.
It's the same with the guitar. There's kids that
there's always going to be somebody younger than you and better than you that you have to aspire to be.
Yeah, and it's really wild now. Like, the gap is so big now. Like 4-year-olds are just it's absolutely bonkers.
Yeah,
man.
I tell my students whenever I tell them to look up a piece, I'm like, make sure it's a grown up that's playing it. Like, you know, you can watch the younger ones do it, but, like, you know, make sure it's a grown up that's playing it if you want to, you know, continue to feel.
And, you know, man, like, the older I get, like, when I was younger, I was absolutely that guy. I wanted to do. I studied, like, 8-finger tapping, and I was such a nerd, and but the older I get, like, I find that I get more just. I just continually fall in love with the sound of the instrument, whether it's violin or piano or, like, an acoustic guitar, just the real basic tone of the thing, no matter what's being played on it. There's something really magical just about sound. And I seem to get a little more in touch with that as I get older. Like, this morning I was having coffee, and the weather was nice, and I went outside, and there were, like, birds, and I was kind of reviewing some of the things we did in rehearsal on an acoustic guitar, and I was playing real slow, and I was like, this is nice, you know? Like, you don't have to be a shredder to appreciate the beauty of music, you know?
Yeah, like, I'm going to sound like such an old person.
But trust, not with me in the room, you're not. Like,
there's so much stuff that I feel like, you know, we've gone so much into, like, the electronic stage, and, you know, we use so much with computers and technology and, you know, sound modifications that it's just something, I don't know, like, organic about having, you know, like, going back and listening to just, like, you know, the acoustic instrument itself. Like, it's just, like, you know, you take away all the bells and whistles and everything, and it's just, it's something nice. There's a really nice about it.
And if you're a player, I think there's, like, a vulnerability about it that's kind of like there's not all this, like, compression and delay and all this to cover up your mistakes. Like, you feel very naked, for lack of a better term. Like, it's real honest.
And you get all the overtones and everything too with that I don't think you necessarily get with you know, the electronic music, and it's lovely. It's a lovely balance.
To add on to that, kind of out of the same vein, I mean, that's why I love going to live shows so much and having things like, you know, the Admiral Music Fest, because you have all these different genres together, and you're like, well, I don't really like with me, I'm like, I don't really like jam bands. I don't like listening to them, but that's because I've never seen one live, right? A lot of kids my age don't go and see live music.
Like Fish.
Like live shows. Yeah. And so, you know, they show up with this expectation like they're gonna hate it, and then they sit there, and I'm like, I ask them at school, the following Monday, what'd you think? And they're like, man, I really thought I was going to hate that, but that was probably the most fun I've had in a while.
Yeah, and I mean, and when you have that honest, that there's, especially when you have young players like that, there's just this honesty that comes out, and it's almost like you listen to people tell their story, and every band sounds a little different, and you get to you kind of in a weird way, even if you don't get formally introduced to them, there's this type of an introduction happening, like you get to hear what they've been thinking about. And what they're playing and what they've rehearsed, and then it's cool that way.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite facets of a person is if they're a musician and what they play, or if it's a writer, what they write, or what I mean. I'm a big fan of the creative process, and so when you see somebody doing it in any form, it's awesome. And you guys are awesome, and what you guys have done is awesome. And we'll go ahead and wrap up, but thank you so much. Is there anything else you guys need to add while we're here?
I don't think so.
Can't think of anything.
You guys are so impressive, and I am just thrilled that you gave us the time of day today. And I'll be there on the 29th, and I'll bring everybody that I can. And listen, again, I told you you're going to hear this a lot, but March 29th at the Farragut Community Center, Jamestown Drive.
Yes.
Admiral Music Fest, final year, GoFundMe. Find the support Admiral Music Fest final year on GoFundMe, and then reach out to Admiral Music Fest on Instagram or at Gmail to volunteer and help out, and just show up. Let's really make this the third and final year until this comes back in some other form. You know what I mean? So whatever the next fest is, let's really make it a good one here. And again, Katrina and Bailey, thank you so much. You guys are the best.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Oh, my.